I have already made 2 videos about the Guardian rework. The first one was like an initial thoughts, initial news. Second one was like a first look after Orion's forum post with some details. But now Orion has posted 3 new forum threads with the blue line, red line, and yellow line, and going more in depth. And in this video, we're going to look at all the 3 forum posts and go more in depth with the new Guardian rework. We're going to start off with the blue line, the defender of the free forum thread. So Orion says, "Hello all, it's been a while. As we start to drive toward update 37, we wanted to give you a new peek behind the curtain as we start the Guardian refresh. Some of you may have noticed before the forums a flurry of activity in the Guardian sub-forum that spilled over at least in a memoriam style to the new forums. Well, the time has come and work began in earnest on the beefy Guardian, and I wanted to pull the curtain back and give you an idea of how things are going. First, the biggest change. The Fighter of Shadow, which is yellow line, is no longer going to be a tree into which you can specialize. Instead, the Fighter of Shadow tree becomes a utility tree with augments to enhance damage, threat, and survivability, and a couple of nifty new tricks for the Guardian to use while protecting the free people. The second largest change is to the Ghyn blade, which is a red line Guardian. The DPS line for the Guardian should move them up in parity, and while still focusing on bleeds, it focuses more on creating consistent critical events for itself as it works toward outlasting opponents. This new focus on dealing that damage comes at sacrificing some of their survivability in the form of healing. It sounds harsh, but the incoming healing that a Ghyn Blade Guardian receives from their skills is reduced by 50%, but the damage output is much higher. So I think a fair trade-off for Redline, not getting as strong self-healing from their cooldown skills, but more DPS as you would want. The changes to the Defender of Free are minor, but nonetheless transformative. So let's take a look at how this is all coming together with a focus on the Defender of the Free blue line. So if we continue to look down in the forum post, we have the Defender of the Free descriptor uses mitigations and defense to protect allies. So blue line Guardian obviously is the Guardian tanking line. Role: the true tanking build using both AoE and single target taunts. The primary focus in protection and survival. Innate bonus: your shield skills have a 25% chance to apply a fortification effect that increases your mitigations by 1%. This effect may stack up to 5 times. Now this is something that's already in the game, and eventually if you max out your fortifications, you increase both your mitigations by 10%. Now the continuation of this forum post is a overview of the trait tree, and with this in mind we're going to go into the game and have a look at what's going to change. This is the current live version of the Guardian, and of course we're looking at blue line Guardian, and we're going to look at blue, starting off with blue line at the top. As you can see from the text above, this is basically a recreation of the trait tree, so the far left part is open, meaning the set bonus is open, and as you can see the next line is filled, filled, and open, and filled, just mimicking the top. So looking at the top line, of course there's no set bonus in the beginning. We have Relentless Assault. It seems like it's not really gonna change. It says 5% per tier for the skill Sting to apply a finesse. But to me, it looks like this skill will stay the same, where if you max out this trait, you have a 25% chance for Sting to provide a block and parry response, and you also get some nice finesse with the trait. The next trait, Tireless Defender, stays the same, reducing power cost per tier. Moving over to the far right, we have our first change. Defensive Expertise is actually moving over to yellow line, so this block chance trait is going to move to the utility line. Instead, we're getting the Guardian's Ward Tactics, so the one in the next line. Guardian's Ward Tactics is getting moved up to take its place. So first change, Guardian's Ward Tactics moves up to the top right, and Defensive Expertise moves to yellow line. Moving over to the second line, Guardian Defense, the first trait set bonus, is unchanged and it gives the same bonuses. Then we have an empty spot. The next one is Guardian's Pledge, staying the same, granting you the skill Guardian's Pledge. We have an open spot because Guardian's Ward Tactics is moving up to the top in blue line. And on the far right, we're gonna have Bellow, 5 ranks, meaning that Bellow from rank 3 moves up 1 spot and takes this spot on the far right in the second line. And looking at the third line of blue, the first trait set bonus that gets a change, adaptability, is no longer a block and parry ratings buff, but instead reduces all incoming damage by 1%. So adaptability no longer block and parry, but instead reduces incoming damage from all sources by 1%. Moving on in the third line, Shield Smash stays the same, Reversal stays the same, we have an open spot, and as we know, Bellow moves up to the second line. And instead of Bellow, we have Smashing Stab from the fourth line moving up, taking the spot of Bellow. So Smashing Stab will be on the third rank of Blue Guardian. We've arrived at the fourth line of the blue traits, and another change to a set bonus. Shield Wall is no longer a trait set bonus, instead Shield Wall goes into the main trait line. The new third set bonus will be Protection by the Shield. And the Protection by the Shield skill will be a new toggle skill that will protect your allies within 30 meters around you. So replacing Shield Wall, you instead get Protection by the Shield, a toggle skill that will give buffs to allies within 30 meters of the Guardian. Continuing through the fourth line, follow through stays the same, increasing your shield smash targets. We have an open spot, but this is going to get filled by Shield Wall. Shield Wall is getting moved into this trait line, so it's going to be on rank 4. So either here or here with the Smashing Stab, one of those two places. And the last trait in this rank will be the new Shield of Light, which has 5 ranks. So rank 1 through 4 will increase the incoming damage reduction on the Protection of the Shield trait that you're going to get, the new toggle skill, by 0.5% per rank. So all the way up to 2% reduction for your allies. And the Guardian will also get plus 3% perceived threat per rank, up to 12. And if you add the 5th trait point into the Shield of Light trait, you get +1 max targets on Shield Taunt, and it seems like the max incoming damage reduction you can get is 2%, but the perceived trait goes all the way up to 15%. So maxing out the Shield of Light gives you 1 more target for your Shield Taunt skill, reduces the incoming damage for your allies if they're within your Protection by the Shield radius, and also increases the Guardian's perceived threat by 15%. And moving on to the next line, Challenge the Darkness trait set bonus stays the same. We have an open spot. We have a change to the Shield Spikes trait, basically doubling the effects of both ranks. So at rank 5, the Shield Spikes crit chance will now be 10%, and the duration will be 20 minutes, up from 10. And in this open spot, we're actually going to get a new trait. So High Spirited from the top right in yellow. The incoming healing modifier becomes a trait you gain from blue line, so High Spirited from the top right in yellow, moving all the way down, taking this spot between Shield Spike and Disorientation, and we get a new incoming healing trait for blue line Guardians specifically. The Disorientation trait, which right now is pretty useless for a Guardian tank, we'll see a change, and instead of reducing the parry, block, and evade, it will now give you a 25% chance at 5 ranks to reduce your enemy's critical defense. So no longer reducing a BPE, but instead giving Blue Guardian some more group utility, reducing the target's critical defense. So Disorientation might be worth trading again as a Blue Guardian. And moving on to line number 6, Strengthen the Bulwark stays the same. Your fortification buffs improves additional damage mitigations, giving you up to 10% mitigations with fortifications, as well as having your critical hits with your shield skills apply a stack of fortification to yourself. Warrior's Fortitude actually sees quite a big change. The effects that you typically gain from Warrior's Fortitude, so if you trade this in blue currently, Your warrior's heart skill, once you use it, will increase your Physmid, incoming healing, block, and partial block chance. But the change to this trait with the refreshed Guardian, as you can see the bonuses at the top right, 1% Physmid, 1% incoming healing, 1% block chance, and 1.25 partial block chance. Instead of these buffs getting triggered by using Warrior's Heart, you will instead just simply gain these as a passive buff and have them non-stop. So non-stop, you're going to have 1% mid, 1% incoming healing, 1% block chance, 1.25% partial block, just from trading this. Now, no longer do you have to use Warrior's Heart, it's just simply trading this will give you these as passive buffs. And Orion says that this is maybe a bit too strong, but honestly, in my opinion, having this be bound by the Warrior's Heart skill was kind of meh. So I don't mind this just becoming a passive buff. We have the Stoic Warrior's Heart bubble staying the same. This trait doesn't change. And basically, from this point, there's not any big changes. Bolstering block stays the same. Juggernaut stays the same. Break ranks stays the same. I personally wish that break ranks would have its own skill instead of being bound to shield taunt, but it doesn't seem like we're getting that. And the final set bonus, Shield the People, stays the same. So that pretty much covers all the changes that happens in the blue line trait for the blue Guardian. So then, let's have a look at the red line Guardian. So the second biggest change after yellow line becoming utility line is to the Ghyn blade line, the red Guardian. So Orion says, hot off the heels of yesterday, let's take a look at how we are planning on changing the Guardian's secondary spec, the Ghyn blade. The ultimate goal with altering the Ghyn blade is to give the Guardian the ability to occupy a true DPS role at endgame. The inherent survivability of the class means that there needs to be a little bit of trade-off when coming into the Ghyn blade, and that is why their self-heals will be considerably lower. In fact, they will be cut in half. This follows the trend that we have for the damage aspect of other classes, so we don't believe that this is too much of a departure. And yeah, I think this is fine. If you're playing Red Guardian, you don't really need those strong self-heals, so that's a fine change. We are also leaning more heavily into bleeds and putting a new premium on critical chance with the Ghyn blade. Rather than describing the changes in prose, let us move to the breakdown. The Ghyn blade descriptor uses bleeds and high damage attacks to defeat foes. Role focuses on dealing damage. Skills have a high base damage, bleeds, and powerful finishing skills. Innate bonus, Guardian self-healing is reduced by 50%. Retaliation and Whirling Retaliation become Breach and Whirling Breach. These skills allow the use of parry and block response chains. Parry and block response skills deal 15% more damage, and you earn the skill Overwhelm. So just as before, we have an overview of the new trait tree, and we're gonna move into the game to get a look at the new traits. So the Ghyn blade currently has the skill Force Opening, and this skill will no longer be available in red line, but instead will be available in the utility line, the Fighter of Shadow. So for now, we're not going to talk about Force Opening. But before we look at the trait lines, let's mention the Retaliation and Whirling Retaliation getting a change. These skills will basically change their name to Breach and Whirling Breach. And these two new skills, so Breach and Whirling Breach, should no longer require a parry response to use, but instead what they will do, as soon as you use Retaliation or Whirling Retaliation, they will open both block and parry response skills. So instead of requiring a parry response to use these skills, so Breach and Whirling Breach, will now open both parry and block. So basically giving you a parry and a block response. So more ways for the Guardian to open their chains. Breach and Whirling Breach will help you open your chains more easily. Looking at the traits themselves, so starting at the top line, Thrill of Battle is getting a big change. Thrill of Battle currently gives you a heal if you get a critical hit with your response skills, or a percentage of your max morale. And this heal can't trigger more than once every 8 seconds. And the rework to Thrill of Battle you can see at the top here. Thrill of Battle, your successful damage attacks increases your critical chance by 1% per tier that you trait and stack up to 5 times. Critical hits reset the effect. So basically, to explain this really simply, if you put all your points into the new Thrill of Battle, each tier of your crit buff is 5% and it can stack up to 5 times, giving you a maximum of 25% crit chance. So a really nice buff to the Guardian, getting a lot of critical hits. Basically, every skill that you would land on your enemy would increase this stack by 1. So let's say I use 1 attack, that's 5%, 2 attacks, 10%, a third attack is 15%, and the crit chance keeps increasing unless you get a critical hit. If you hit a critical hit, this effect will reset back to 0 and you'll have to build it up again. So it's basically just a tool to help the Guardian get more critical hits. Every time you get a critical hit, this Thrill of Battle buff resets to 0, and every attack you use from then will increase by 5% up to 5 times to 25%. And Thrill of Battle, of course, will be a must pick for Red Guardian, basically giving the Red Guardian some nice increase to their critical hits. And overall, this should increase the DPS of the Red Guardian. So it's going to be interesting to see how this trait plays out, but the Guardian overall should see a lot more critical hits. Moving on through the line, we have an opening spot. We have the Skilled Deflection, which is your parry chance. This is getting removed from red line and moved over to the new yellow utility line. So Skilled Deflection no longer part of the red tree. Heavy weapons training stays the same but gets an additional effect, 1% per tier for damage to two-handed weapons. So maxing out this trait in redline gives you still 10% skill damage, but also 5% two-handed weapon damage. Looking at the second line of the Red Guardian, doesn't really get any changes. Valorous Strength stays the same, Broad Strokes stays the same, as well as Thrust staying the same. On the third rank for the Red Guardian, we see a change. Reactive Parry will no longer be the set bonus here. Instead, Bleed Them Dry is getting moved up 2 ranks to be the second trait set bonus. So Bleed Them Dry gets moved up instead of Reactive Parry, and Invigorating Parry kind of stays the same. The only change is that not only parry response skills will restore the power, but also critical hits with your block response skills as well. So Invigorating Parry, if you decide to trait this, will restore power on critical hits on parry response skills and also block response skills. Looking at the next rank, we have an interesting change to Protection by the Sword. Instead of being a toggle skill that you put on a Fellowship member, it'll now be just like in Blue Line, the Protection by the Shield. You now get an aura where you protect your allies around you. So the new Protection by the Sword will be a toggle skill that puts an aura around the Guardian and adds a damage boost to melee and ranged damage at base 3% currently. So if you're a melee or a ranged player and you have a Red Guardian in your group, if the Red Guardian toggles Protection by the Sword, you will get an increase to your melee and ranged damage by 3% currently. And also in rank 4, Deeper Wounds and To the King will stay the same. On the next line, replacing the Bleed Them Dry set bonus. As we know, Bleed Them Dry moves up to the second trait set bonus. And instead of Bleed Them Dry, we get a brand new set bonus. Battle Fury grants the skill Battle Fury. So Battle Fury will basically be a Red Guardian cooldown skill. So a damage cooldown skill that you can pop, boosting the Guardian's damage and critical magnitude by 20% for 20 seconds. So the initial value of the Battle Fury cooldown skill will be a 20-second duration where you get 20% increase of damage and 20% critical magnitude increase. So that's going to be the initial value of this DPS cooldown, but if it's too strong they might have to nerf it a bit. But those are the initial values, and Red Guardian will finally have a DPS cooldown. Hemorrhage stays the same. I know it says Into the Fray, and that's obviously the To the Rescue, and this gets a minor change. the rank 6 of To the Rescue, and I guess this trait will change name to Into the Fray. At rank 6, the trait will only affect the next melee attack. Brutal Charge seems like it's staying the same. Warrior's Fortitude gets the same treatment as the blue line, that instead of being applied by Warrior's Heart, you instead simply get these values passively. So in red line, you will get a physical mastery value based on your level, plus 1% melee crit chance, plus 1% parry chance, and plus 1.5 partial parry chance. Blind Rage should stay the same. On the next line, I believe Heavy Blows will stay the same, 5% melee damage, and it says in the trait that Ryan put plus 10% crit damage, but I feel like this will stay 10% critical damage multiplier, not increasing your critical chance. So critical damage multiplier, Heavy Blow stays the same. Hammer Down will stay the same as a trait, and a big change to Honorable Combat. Honorable Combat is getting replaced by Rupture. And Rupture requires Hammer Down because Hammer Down is what will trigger the Rupture effect. So what exactly happens with Rupture? So if you trait Hammer Down and Rupture, then Hammer Down will do the following. Hammer Down will strip all the current bleeds from the target, dealing bonus damage for each bleed removed. So basically, you have all your bleeds on a target, and then use Hammer Down, it'll cash out those bleeds for bonus damage on your target. The other effect will be that each bleed removed increases damage dealt to the target by 2.5% for 5 seconds. And this effect will stack for every bleed that you remove, meaning that if you remove, let's say you remove 4 bleeds, that will increase the damage by 10%, so 2.5 per bleed, 10% for 20 seconds, so 5 seconds per bleed removed. And the final effect will be that it applies a new bleed called Ruptured Artery to the target that bleeds every 2 seconds for 6 seconds. So depending on how many bleeds you remove, the Rupture will be stronger. For every bleed removed by Hammer Down with Rupture, you get bonus damage, you get 2.5% increased damage, and 5-second duration per bleed. So 4 bleeds, like I said, removing 4 bleeds would stack that effect up to 10% incoming damage for 20 seconds. And you also leave a powerful Ruptured Artery bleed on the target. So a really nice rework to the capstone traits for Red Guardian. And the final set bonus in red, Prey on the Weak, will stay the same. And finally, we have come to the new utility line, the Fighter of Shadow. So Orion writes, "We have come to the final update on the Guardian progress thus far, and we are here on this solemn occasion to say farewell to the specialized tree, the Fighter of Shadow, and to welcome the refreshed support tree, the Fighter of Shadow." Now, this decision was not made without a thought for the ramifications that it has or a plan for how to integrate what is lost. Most of the old functionality in the trait set bonuses are still present in the new support tree. Most of the costs in the new support tree are 1 point for the trait. There are some exceptions highlighted in yellow that cost more as they are the more impactful traits in the tree. With all that out of the way, here are the current new traits in the Fighter of Shadow. So the Fighter of Shadow descriptor augments Defender of the Free and Keen Blade with tools to enhance defense, damage, and utility. Role: though the Guardian cannot specialize in the Fighter of Shadow, it supports itself and allies with debuffs and modifiers to strengthen its ability to sustain damage and threat against all enemies. And as we can see, we have the new traits, and we're going to go into the game and have a look. So as we know, currently you can actually trait into Yellow Guardian and play as the Fighter of Shadow. This will be going away. The yellow line will just become a utility line, so we can forget about all these set bonuses and forget about everything that's in this line. But in any case, we're going to spec into option 3 and the Fighter of Shadow. And we're going to look at the traits and see what's going to be changing. So, looking at the top rank in yellow, the far left trait will be Force Opening, earns the skill Force Opening. So Force Opening is currently a trait in red line that you get from playing Red Guardian, and this is now going to be available for both Blue and Red Guardian. as the yellow line is made to support red and blue guardian. So top left is going to be force opening, where you earn the skill force opening. And as Orion noted already, the things that are in yellow writing will cost more than 1 point, so we can assume that force opening will be costing 2 points. The same goes for Bastion of Light. So the second trait will be Insult to Injury. So the trait Insult to Injury will simply move 1 step to the right. And on this open spot here, we will get a Bastion of Light. The Bastion of Light will be a new skill that places a hotspot beneath your feet. When a monster or monster player enters this hotspot, they are flagged as being affected by the Guardian. Monsters and monster players in these hotspots are more susceptible to your skills. So basically, this skill, whenever you use it, will place like a circle or a square on your feet, and any monsters inside this hotspot can be affected by the Guardian skills. And on the far right in the top rank in yellow, as we all know, the High Spirited is going from yellow and moving into blue line, deep into blue line. So instead, in the top right of yellow, we're getting Defensive Expert. So every rank increases block and parry chance per rank up to a max of 5, meaning that the blue line Defensive Expertise and the red line Skilled Deflection get fused into one trait that's going to be found in the top right in yellow line. A really nice change. Instead of having 2 different traits for the block and parry, it is now its own trait fused together in the top right of yellow. On the next line, we're gonna have something called Light Touched in this space. This is a new trait that allows the Guardian to block with 2-handed weapons, and also adding 0.20% melee damage and incoming healing per rank. So putting all 5 points into Light Touch will give you the ability to block with 2-handed weapons, increasing your melee damage by 1% and your incoming healing by 1%. War Chant will stay the same, where you earn the skill War Chant. Numbed Senses seems like it's moving to the 4th spot in this rank. The trait will stay the same, and in the spot of Numbed Senses, we will instead get Radiate. Radiate moves from the top line of yellow down here and will require Bastion of Light. So Bastion of Light, as we know, will be here, and Radiate will require Bastion of Light, being the next in line after Bastion of Light. And this trait is getting changed to increase the range of the Bastion of Light by 3 meters per rank. So you can increase the radius of your hotspot by 9 meters, and it's still keeping the 30% chance to spread existing non-damaging debuffs from an affected target up to 1 additional target per rank. So Radiate will increase the radius of your Bastion of Light hotspot, and also increase the targets that you can spread your debuffs to. Moving on to the 3rd rank, Tenderize is moving from the far right in this line to the left side, and it seems like it's keeping the same effect where when you parry an attack, you increase your critical rating, but instead of just parrying, it will also include blocking. So both blocking and parrying an attack will increase your critical rating with the Tenderize trait. The 2nd spot stays open as normal. Thrill of Danger stays the same, stays in yellow right here. And it seems like Bolster is staying the same as well, only that Bolster moves from the left side to the right side. Bolster and Tenderize seems like they're staying the same, but Tenderize can also be procced by block, and Thrill of Danger stays the same. Moving on to the next line. On the 4th line in yellow, we have something entering on the far left, and that is the set bonus Disabling Strikes. Disabling Strikes basically moves into a trait on the far right in the 4th rank. Demoralizing Anthem seems like it's staying the same. There's an open spot, of course, and then we have Redirect. Redirect stays the same. On the next line, we have Strong Burst, and Strong Burst is not going to stay there. It's simply getting moved down a line. Replacing the Strong Burst location will be the Flash of Light trait. Flash of Light will upgrade your Bastion of Light hotspot by gaining a damage over time effect that deals light damage to all targets within the light hotspot. The duration of your hotspot is also increased by 5 seconds, so trading the Flash of Light in the bottom left of yellow will make your Bastion of Light hotspot deal damage and also increase the duration of the hotspot. We have an open spot, then we have the Bring on the Pain. Bring on the Pain is staying the same. And on the far right, we have an open spot. And on the 6th rank, we have Warrior's Fortitude is getting moved down a bit. So Strong Burst from rank 5 gets moved down, taking the place of Warrior's Fortitude. Strong Burst stays the same, 2% AoE damage per rank, and at max rank it goes up to 20%, so definitely something you want as a Red Guardian. On live we have 2 open spots. They're gonna get filled by Protected by the Light, and Protected by the Light will affect your Protection by the Shield and Protection by the Sword in blue and in red line. So Protection by the Shield in blue and Protection by the Sword in red is your 30 meters radius, buffing your allies around yourself, and trading the Protected by the Light trait will increase the Protection by the Shield in blue line by gaining a 0.25% bonus to incoming healing, and in red line it will reflect some of the damage dealt to your allies to the target that deals that damage. So getting the trait Protected by the Light gains some more incoming healing to blue line Protected by the Shield, and for red line Protected by the Sword gives some reflect damage back to the attackers. On the 2nd open spot we have the trait Manifested Ire coming into the traits, and Vicious Rebuttal in the far right stays the same. And on the final bottom line of yellow, you're gonna have Warrior's Guile, so Warrior's Fortitude trait going down here to be called Warrior's Guile, and as with the other Warrior's Fortitude traits, it's gonna give you a passive buff, giving you a critical defense buff based on your level, plus 1% tact mitigation, plus 1% evade, and plus 1.5% partial evade chance if you trade the Warrior's Guile trait. Singular Focus seems like it's staying the same, and Cataclysmic Shout, which I personally think is one of the coolest animations in the game, will stay the same, but the cost is increased, and it will cost 2 points to get this skill. And that pretty much sums up the new Guardian. What do people think? What do you guys think about the blue, red, and new yellow? It looks like blue is kind of staying the same, but also getting some nice quality of life improvements. So I still feel like Blue Line Guardian is going to be really strong and definitely a meta tank. The most interesting thing is of course seeing how Red Line Guardian turns out, but looking at the changes that are proposed, it seems like they should get a significant damage increase. Yellow Line overall I like the changes to, looks like some nice utility both for blue and both for red. And it's going to be interesting to see how strong the Bastion of Light hotspot is, if it's ever going to be needed. But overall, I think I'm a really big fan of the Guardian refresh. Let me know what people think in the comments. Are you as positive as me? Is there something you really dislike, something you really like? Let me know in the comments, and thank you guys for watching. Hey! Hey you! Yeah, you! What do you want? You enjoy my content and you want to support me? Fine, I'll show you how you can do it. I would really appreciate if you like the video and subscribe to my channel. You can also support me through my Ko-fi homepage. If you're playing or looking to play Lord of the Rings online, there is one place you need to be. The Ghyniverse is a Discord server created for the community of the players of Lord of the Rings Online. The server is getting close to 7,000 members, and in this server you'll find tons of helpful information. There's monthly giveaways, easy access to patch notes, you can keep up with my YouTube videos, my streams. If you're a streamer, you can ask for the streamer role and you can announce your streams in the other stream channel. There are discussion channels for pretty much everything, every class, monster players. But the best thing about this server is probably the Gearing Resources tab, where you can find anything from trait lines for every class, every build. There are stat goals, where you can find out what stats you should aim for on your characters. Really helpful information about drop rates from instances, as well as screenshot from all the new loot that appears in the game. If you enjoy LOTRO, you should definitely consider joining this server, and hopefully I'll see you in Middle Earth. If you were part of the Ghyniverse already, you might have noticed that another tab appeared at the top, the LFF server. This server is a brand new server that I created, the LFF Ghyniverse. In this server, you can select which servers you want to keep up with, and once you select your server, say you select Arkenstone, you will see the LFF, the kinship advertisement, looking for kinship and trade channels, and there's also voice channels if people want to use those. The LFF channel is basically a looking for fellowship channel where people can post if they need players for the runs, and this way people don't have to be logged into the game to see the chat, they can just instead get a notification on their Discord. There's also a kinship advertisement page where kins can post their kinship advertisement and have people join their kins, and you can also post in the looking for kinship chat if you're looking for a kinship, but make sure to take a look in the kinship advertisement first and look through all the kin to find a suitable kin for you. There's also a trade channel if people want to buy or sell stuff that you can use. Hopefully you'll consider joining this server to bring the community even more together, not just in the game, but also outside of the game.